Hi, good evening. I am doing the project, the homework assignment, What Do I Know and Understand? Um, so the first question I'm seeing is, who developed stages of cognitive development, and what do you know about this stage? What is something a child can't do at ages 2 to 7, and they can do at ages 7 to 12? Piaget developed the stages of cognitive development. What do I know about the stages? It's sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete, and formal. With sensory motor, it's from birth to 2 years old. For pre-operational, it's from 2 to 7. And then for concrete, it is 7 to 12. And for formal, it's 12 to 18. I know that in sensory motor stage, little babies tend to be very egocentric. No. There's the sensory motor. That's the next one. Sensory motor is where they like to put a lot of things in their mouth. They want to touch a lot of things. It's all about the five senses. Seeing, touching, feeling, hearing, tasting. And then with the pre-operational, it's all about, the egocentric. They're more ego. They think the world revolves around them. And in concrete, they are very they're not abstract. In formal, they're more abstract. In concrete, they are, I can't think of the exact word, but I do know that the difference between ages 2 to 7 and 7 and 12 is water conservation. That's what it is. So they understand water conservation. If you have two glasses that are different sizes or that you have two exact same amounts of water, and you pour one inside in a tall glass and one in a short glass, and they have the ability to be able to know that that's still the same amount of water, even though it may not look like it. So that's one big difference between the two. So, part of his theory from question 1 had to do with disequilibrium and assimilation and accommodation. What do you know about these words? Assimilation is when you can take something that you know, knowledge that you know, and if you see a new piece of information, I guess what stuck in my head is when we learned it, I remember we learned about the couches. Like if you see one couch and then like a new piece of furniture is brought in that's not really a couch, but in your mind you can assimilate it. You can see the similarities in it and then identify it as a piece of furniture. And so that's assimilation. And then accommodation is when maybe you can't really figure out the name of something, and so assimilation is when you see a chair and you know it's a chair because of in the past you've seen plenty of chairs. But accommodation is, maybe it's a couch and you sit on it, so it's you're accommodating, you're taking something that's not exactly the same, but you're saying, I know it's in this family, so I'm going to accommodate the assimilation. When you have a hard time doing that, when you can't really go from assimilation to accommodation, you can't quite get there, then that's called disequilibrium. What do I know about constructivism? Constructivism is when you take knowledge that you know and you apply it to problem solving, and you apply it to the things that you're learning. That is constructivism. There's constructivism, knowledge, transfer of knowledge, and situated learning. Those are the three categories that fall under constructivism. And transfer of knowledge is when one person that already knows the information teaches someone who doesn't know the information, i.e. teachers, and takes what they know from their experiences and they teach it to children. And situated learning is learning from situations that you've been in the past and applying it to how you learn about how you learn. We know what positive reinforcement and punishment are, but what is really negative reinforcement? Negative reinforcement is, in class we used the example of a cell phone. We said that if kids, we know that taking a cell phone away from a kid is going to be very negative, or it's going to be negative to the kid. But if the reason is so they'll do their homework or maybe go to sleep, that's reinforcing something good. But the negative is you're taking something away. And the positive is that you're reinforcing something good. So it's negative reinforcement. Erikson developed 8 stages of psychosocial development. Which one did he think was most critical and why? It was the first one, trust versus mistrust. And why did he think that? He thought that because if you messed up in one area, or if you messed up at the beginning, then it would be more difficult to get back on track all throughout the other stages. So it wouldn't be impossible, but it would be difficult. What do you know about the zone of proximal development? What might it be important for teachers to know? What do you know about this? The zone of proximal development was starts with a V. Vygotsky. He's the one that theorized about this. He's the one that developed this. If you look at the theory as like an egg, like what we talked about in class, or an oval, and you have the yolk, that's the student, and that's them learning on their own. And when you learn on your own, if you try to learn by yourself, your zone or your ability to retain the knowledge and learn the knowledge is much smaller than if you were assisted, say by a teacher. And it opens up your zone. It opens up your zone of learning. So you have this small little section where if you learn by yourself, and then if you have the teacher involved, you have a huge amount of space to learn. But then after the teacher stops teaching, there's a part where it's retained, and that right outside the egg is It's called the zone. It's called the zone of natural progression. The zone of natural progression. And why might it be important for teachers to know? Because even though we go in and we teach students, there's still going to be some things that they may not retain. If you actually take a whole entire school year, that could be applied to like a whole entire school year. You teach them so much, and then they go on break, their summer break, and then after their summer break, you have to go back and kind of reteach some stuff that their natural point of regression. Let's see. Turn it. What theory are the words empathy and sense of self part of? Why would this area of thought have an impact on the way students learn? What theory are the words empathy and sense of self part of? It is part of the one that I did my game on. Social emotional development theory. And why would this area of thought have an impact on the way students learn? And why would this area of thought have an impact on the way students learn? Let me make this big again. Why would it have an impact on the way students learn? Well, with empathy, if you take the academic portion out of learning and you just look at a classroom setting, empathy is huge. It is the part of learning, especially in a social environment. Having empathy is just part of life. So it affects the learner huge in a learning environment. And why might and sense of self? You have to have sense of self. You have to have that ego. You have to have not the ego. You have to have that self-esteem. I keep on having to pull this down to the side so I could see the questions because I won't scroll up any further. Why would constructivists want to do away with the way grading is currently done in schools as well as standardizing tests? Because constructivists believe that there shouldn't be standardization. They believe that everybody's individuals and there can't really be a standard. So, like, for example, there shouldn't, no, that's not a good example. But they believe there shouldn't be standards like that. They should be measured individually on the person. I gotta pull this down to the side again. Where's it at? The very early theories came out of the idea of conditioning. Why were people so opposed to using the real terms when these theories came into the schools? And that all has to blame Hitler, because at the time, conditioning was looked at more of like lab rats. Like this, they didn't want students to be they didn't want teachers to be looked at as using students as like lab rats or conditioning them. It was back in those days. It was a very negative word, conditioning, experimenting, and those kind of various negative tones. So yeah, it was basically was a Hitler. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.